Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Coming up on this episode of Off 90. Come with us to Winona and meet a man who has the power to bring the inanimate to life, a puppeteer. Watch as a piece of history leaves its mark on Austin as it makes way for the future. And we explore the history of Assisi Heights and discover some of the important work that goes on there today. It's all just ahead, Off 90. Hi, I'm Barbara Keith. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Off 90. For several years, Robert Armstrong has been performing and creating marionette and rod puppet theater. Bob creates his puppets with objects he finds from around Winona and then creates the stories for his puppets to perform. From custom design to birthday parties for the little ones, haunted houses to Candyland, Bob has a puppet show or puppet to please or disturb just about anyone.
Poetry kind of bring the world to life. People kind of suspend their belief. They'll fall into the story once they see the puppets moving around. I'm Robert Armstrong. I live in Winona, Minnesota. I am a master puppeteer. It takes people back to their childhood when they played with dolls, when they imagined that they're army guys were, you know, Chief Bill Sargent or whatever, you know. And I think, you know, like, at least like when I do stuff, say at like a festival, it just, you know, it suspends your belief. You're just like, you're there. You're inside the puppet. You're listening to the puppet says, you're inside the cartoon, you know. And the puppets kind of look like cartoons. They kind of, you know, they like live action cartoon. And you get to be right there. I ain't no pirate. I ain't no pirate's son. That's no fun. Work on a ship till the day is done. When I was pretty young, I bought a antique puppet. It was pretty old. He was a little frog. I was busking on the streets in Madison, Wisconsin, and it sort of was my livelihood, you know, $5 or $6 a day dancing the puppet, and it's like, it was pretty fun, you know, to do it. But he fell apart, and so since that was my bread and butter, I fixed him, kept him going, and that kind of got me into the engineering of puppets, of marionettes, and that kind of led to what I do now. Eventually I needed other characters as the story started to develop in my head. And, so I just started making them out of, you know, like chunks of wood, carved down a chunk of wood. I spent a lot of time just collecting, you know, out in the woods, out in the, you know, the world, kind of looking for things. I'm kind of like a crow that way. I'm just kind of looking for shiny stuff. I'll just build like whatever inspires me at the moment. Sometimes I'm working on a show and I'll do everything I can to not build something for the show, but I'll build other stuff. Like working on Huckleberry Finn, I built like a little robot, you know, like this big out of just found trash. And it's like, oh, this is fun, but I mostly just did that to kind of avoid working on what I had to work on. Most of the characters that come in my puppet shows are kind of stock theater characters. So, you know, you have your clown or your romantic, your lady in distress. You know, so everything's kind of, you know, archetypes of what you'd see on a regular theater, but kind of bust it down. And they're a lot easier to work with than actors. I go out in the world, I see theater, I watch people, you know, interact in the world, and they're like, oh yeah, look at that guy, I should make a puppet of that guy. And kind of build it off of characters that I know in real life.
Dr. Bob's Puppet Show. Gather around, folks, right in front, plenty of seats available. Step right up, right this way at the Bazaar. Dr. Bob's Puppet Show, Huck Finn. Ladies and gentlemen, grab your seats now.
It's a great way to tell a story. I just look for inspiration, you know, reading books, watching cartoons. You know, a good puppet show is like a great cartoon in a lot of ways.
There looks like a young squirrely guy that loves puppet shows. Come, step right up, sir. Bazaar, right over here.
Just doing it over the years, trying different subjects.
Ooga booga, ooga booga.
And so I just kind of go through the stories. I rewrite the story so it fits in the puppet world. Chop it down and make it into something that's going to be dynamic enough for people to enjoy.
There's a place in France where the naked ladies dance, and if you go there, you will lose your underwear.
The show is Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, loosely adapted and stretched by me. It's something I love the book, and it's something I've been working on for a few years, just taking little bits of it. And I live on the Mississippi. Their adventures on the Mississippi, it all ties in. They build a raft, I want to build a raft.
What are you doing, Huck Finn? Why are you scaring a body like that? I thought you was a ghost. Hey, Jim, I ain't no ghost. I'm Huckleberry Finn.
It's an epic book. So I have tons of source material for years, you know, to pull out just little 2 pages of the book and make it a puppet show is more than enough, you know. And so I have 3 episodes written so far, and it barely even skims over what happens in the book.
I am Jim the Zombie. Now I'm going to have to use reverse hypnotism. I am unhypnotized. And so concludes part 1 of Huckleberry Finn. We'll see you all next time.
Like, it kind of keeps me from being schizo, I think, is doing this stuff, because I think all those voices be going on in my head anyway, but I can at least exercise the demons, as it were, through the puppetry. Like, I'm my self-made therapist.
What are you doing, man?
I'm hypnotizing you, catfish.
It won't work, man.
You know, I like doing it because it uses all the different art forms, you know, like I compose music for it, I sculpt the heads, I paint the heads, I do choreography, I paint the backdrops. But, you know, like, I just love building a show, hyping it up, performing it for a crowd that's, you know, that's hungry to see it. I love it. It keeps me alive.
The grandstand at the Mower County Fairgrounds in Austin was built in the 1930s. Its construction was a project set up by the WPA to help stem the rising tide of unemployment. Throughout the decades, thousands of people enjoyed watching events at the grandstand, from horse racing to combine demolition derbies. It stood as a historical testament to the joy that the Mower County Fair brought each year.
Today we're watching a training burn for all the fire departments in Mower County, and actually a few were invited from other counties as well. The structure got condemned in 2012, and as everybody knows, the 2012 fair we ran on a temporary setup, and now we're getting ready to destroy the old structure and get ready for 2013 and hopefully have our new one in place for the fair.
The grandstand is going to be used in a training exercise for the fire department, and they are going to burn it instead of demoing the grandstand, I guess. And it's going to be built anew from the ashes. I'm Jamie Tim, and I'm the curator at Mower County Historical Society. People tell me that they remember as a child going with their families to see the car races, the horses, the wagon races, and to see animals being shown. And that was something that they really enjoyed. The current grandstand was built in 1938 as part of a New Deal program called the Works Progress Administration. And the Works Progress Administration, or the WPA, was a program enacted by President Roosevelt during the Great Depression to try to stimulate the economy and provide jobs for workers. And in 1938, there was actually a program in Minnesota to support fairgrounds, to build grandstands, build barns and other outbuildings. And this particular grandstand fell under that project. They advertised the new grandstand as being kind of state-of-the-art, you know, really popular architecture. The seats would have backrests, and you would have an individual seat instead of just a bleacher. There was going to be office space in the bottom. You were going to be able to seat about 2,700 people in it, and it was just kind of brought about as this is a really important new project for the fair, and that it was going to be really good for Austin. In 1961, a storm came through Austin and it hit the grandstand. The roof pretty much had to be replaced. Some more structural issues had to be shorn up. So in 1961, about half of the building, the grandstand, had to be reconstructed. It's very much just ready to collapse in on itself. And it's to the point where you really just need to start fresh for something like this. We put so many people in there for the fair and other events, and I think the county and the Fair Board just want to be absolutely sure that they have a sound structure.
Well, we're proposing a new aluminum type structure with a cover on it. It'll be similar size, seating wise, but just new, safer. There's mixed emotions about the old one going away.
People are very concerned about the grandstand being burned. It's the imagery, I think, is the most important thing. They are very upset that something that has probably been such an important part of the fair for so many years is just going to be burned to the ground.
You hate to see the old go, but whenever the new is up and in place, everybody steps back and says, wow, that was great, you know.
Assisi Heights is the home to the Sisters of St. Francis in Rochester. The congregation has a long and intimate history with the city. In the late 1800s, a tornado demolished much of Rochester, killing and injuring many of the residents. The Sisters of St. Francis worked with Dr. Mayo to help care for the wounded, and their partnership helped turn Rochester into the well-known destination for medical assistance it is today. The sisters have continued their dedication to the community ever since.
Our legacy, I think, would be quite varied in the sense that I think we have very creative women who have followed their passion and brought about a better good.
Part of the promise that was given to us when we made our promise, that if you give up everything, you will be rewarded 100-fold, and some of that can be in this life. Of course, we all hope for it in the next.
I don't think I've been an outstanding member of the congregation, but I think I have contributed my share.
We're planted in this Rochester community, so what does Rochester need from us?
Right now we have about 120 who live here. That's in healthcare and retirement. But totally we are about 240 sisters.
I've done things I wouldn't have done, I'm sure, had I not joined the congregation.
240 voices move along pretty well together.
Maybe I'm a little prejudiced, but we've always been kind of a front runner among the congregations. I would say that we've made wonderful contributions in both education and in health work. And then there have been some other sorts of things, like all the justice work that we've done since the 70s. We've taught an awful lot of people, nurses, college kids. They're carrying on the work in many ways. Of course, they'll die out too, I suppose, eventually, but that's life, life and death and life again.
Today I introduce you to Mother Alfred, who is the foundress of our congregation. Mother Alfred came to Minnesota with her sister Barbara. They came from Remick in Luxembourg, and their intent in coming to the United States was to teach Native American girls. And the first mother house was downtown in Rochester, Minnesota, and here we have an architect's drawing of the original mother house down on Center Street. That was in 1877. In 1883, there was a tornado in this city, which did an awful lot of destruction to the city.
The number that were killed it's in flux too. They didn't really know, but more than 30 at least were killed. All kinds of people were injured. And Dr. W.W. Mayo, who was not Catholic, and Mother Alfred, who was, he sent word to her and asked if the ladies could help take care of the sick. And it happened to be August. The academy had dormitories. The girls weren't there. So they brought people that were not so severely injured to our mother house, and the sisters nursed them. And Mother Alfred sent some of the sisters out with food and clothing to help the families that had lost everything. And then she started thinking, apparently, or maybe she never stopped. Anyway, she approached Dr. W.W. one day and suggested that Rochester needed a hospital. And he supposedly said, "Madam, what would Rochester want with a hospital?" And she finally, after bringing in his sons, he had 2 sons who became doctors, she said, "If we don't have a hospital in Rochester for your sons, they will go elsewhere, where there is one." And so then he came up with the idea that it cost too much. He said, "Well, it would cost maybe $40,000. Can you manage that?" And she said, "Yes, and more, if it's needed." And so he finally agreed that he would draw up the plans with his sons, and we would build the building, and we'd have this joint venture.
And so St. Mary's 27-bed hospital was built in 1889, and that was the beginning of St. Mary's here in Rochester. The years of 42 to 64 were years of expansion for the congregation. It was during that time that a lot of young women came to the congregation. And so the building downtown seemed to be too small for the expansion, and so then God bless the women in administration, they purchased this property on the hill. And then this building was built, and so here we have the laying of the cornerstone in 1953, which was the beginning of Assisi Heights.
There's a great variety of people that come through to be around, and we also rent space in the building.
The ELCA of Southeastern Minnesota has had an office here since 1985. It was also a meeting place for the Quakers and for the Mennonites, the Methodists. The Presbyterians had their church service here in our auditorium for 8 years. Many different groups, like your AA groups, would meet here.
The Civil Defense unit here at Assisi Heights had at least 1 or 2 operating rooms and 1,000 beds side by side of persons who might, if there was some kind of nuclear attack that would happen in either Red Wing or Minneapolis area, that this is where people would come to stay.
IBM held their first offices here in our building during the period of time that they were looking for space to build their plant.
One of the things that they discovered when they were here is that we didn't have any clocks in the building. So we had IBM clocks for a long, long time. We still have a few around. We are a rural community. The city of Rochester has grown up around us. And so I think some of these people come here to get refreshed again, to have a new spin on what's happening in their own life. So peace and quiet is one of the things that we offer here, and people come for that alone. And we've done that since the very beginning of the building.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Off 90.
Funding for Off 90 is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.